So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome again. My name is AJ Ehrenstein. I am one of two deans of Beyond Barnard, and I wanted to welcome all of you to this final event of Summer Colloquium. We started this virtual series way back in June, 700 years ago. We held about 70 programs over the course of the last 12 weeks on everything from career exploration and job documents to navigating interviews, networking, the school to work transition. We did great workshops with graduating seniors on finding their first job during a pandemic. We did a whole alumni webinar series, and now we are here getting ready to approach the fall semester. Before we started, I just kind of want to acknowledge that this semester will not look like what we anticipated it would look like just a few short days ago. But I am very confident that Beyond Barnard will be here to support you all throughout the virtual semester as it comes. I hope that you'll continue to tap into our resources and understand that we're here to support you over Zoom or otherwise. Zoom, Google Meets, if you're a Google Meets person, we can do phone, we can do smoke signals, we can communicate with you all in just about any way that you need to be communicated with. So I also find that tonight's topics of resilience, leadership, and discussing the impacts of COVID-19 and ongoing social and political complications in the last few months could not be more appropriate. So I'm really happy that I get to stop talking soon because these events go best when I talk least. I will introduce our panel, but before we get going, I'd just like to say thank you to all of you for being here, Keena, Margaret, Jen, and Marina. I love seeing applause emoticons in Zoom, so if you guys want to throw up thumbs up or applause to get us started, I always find that to just be, it just warms my heart to see those little yellow icons in the corner. The way we'll do it is I'll give short introductions to our panelists, and then we had some questions circulated beforehand. We'll go through some of those questions, and I will try to have fidelity to questions that come in from students throughout. So without further ado, I am going to start with Margaret, who is on my Zoom screen directly to my left. Margaret Morton leads the Creativity and Free Expression team at the Ford Foundation, which works to advance the intersection of social justice with the arts, documentary filmmaking, media, and journalism. Margaret initially joined the team as a program officer supporting grant making in the arts and other forms of cultural expression. Her formal support for the arts began in public service at the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs. She devised new frameworks for grant programs, development resources to support arts administrators, and implemented a new model for addressing the affordability of space for artists. Earlier in her career, Margaret served as counsel to the U.S. Senate Committee on the Judiciary, where she worked on civil rights legislation, judicial nomination, and immigration issues as well. She later managed education, labor relations, and the equal opportunity portfolio for the New York State court system. Margaret earned her JD from Georgetown University Law Center down in DC, and her BA right from Barnard in Dance and American History. Margaret, thank you for being here. This is your second appearance at a Beyond Barnard event. I'm so excited to see you again. Jen Reese, hey Jen, is the founder and president of the Sway Effect, one of the fastest growing independent agencies in the marketing and communications industry. She specializes in international reputation, media relations, and crisis communications for CEOs and heads of state. I also wanted to say about Jen, it means a lot that you took time today. Jen was one of the very first and best friends of Beyond Barnard. She was on our very first Opportunities panel, Opportunities Fair alumni panel back in 2018. And I've just been so grateful for her advocacy and advice as we've led Beyond Barnard out of the gates for the last 2.5 years. So it makes totally sense that she's here tonight. She also hired Natalie Kawam as one of her first employees, an alumna as well, which I love to see. Marina Metalios is director of the training department at the Urban Homesteading Assistance Board, which is a nonprofit that creates, preserves, and supports resident-controlled affordable housing opportunities. She also provides technical assistance to tenants, boards, and shareholders in limited equity co-ops and to third parties seeking to develop affordable co-ops. She has been for more than 3 decades, active in New York City tenant and housing justice movements, engaging in a range of board work and electoral politics as well. In addition to her Barnard degree, Marina received an MPA from Columbia University, where she teaches on an adjunct basis as well at SEPA. In 1992 at SEPA, she was a Jacob Javits Fellow and finished her fellowship year working in the US Senate on the Appropriations Subcommittee for Labor, HHS, and Education in Washington, DC. Marina, welcome. It's exciting to see you. And last but very not least, Keenan Mcdonald, who joins us again. She was a Beyond Barnard participant last year as well at the Opportunities Fair. She's an executive director in enterprise technology and services at Morgan Stanley, a firm that she joined in 1997, 23 years at Morgan Stanley. I understand when you joined, it was still Morgan Stanley Dean Witter, which I know Greg Triandis on our team would definitely recognize from his time on the street. Keena has served in a number of roles within technology at Morgan Stanley while completing her BA, including while completing her BA at Barnard and raising her daughter, who, did I hear she's a senior? She's a senior in high school?
Graduated.
Wow, graduated. Congratulations. Keena was named vice president at Morgan Stanley in 2006 and executive director in 2011. Once again, thank you to all of you for making time this afternoon. So I kind of want to open it up and ask a kind of general question about the last 5 months, which have been complicated for all of us in so many different ways. But how have you been managing, you all represent such different industries, how have you been managing the boundaries between personal and professional life, which have seemed to blur if we've been spending all of our time at home with our families, who drive us variously nuts or who we're still happy to see. How have you been managing the boundaries between personal and professional life during this difficult, challenging period? And Keena, let maybe start with you.
Oh, sure. I mean, I don't know how well I've been doing. I certainly could have done a lot better. I think what I've learned is the importance of rest. So in previous times, right? So the boundaries between my professional and personal life were very much enforced with my commute in between the two places that I would need to be, both physically and emotionally. And not having that meant there's no rest period in between, you know, and the recovery that's meant to happen between your professional day and your personal life. I've had to recently take a quiz to see where I was lacking, and what I learned, there's several vectors, and I just want to share with others, my esteemed panelists and the folks participating: physical rest, mental rest, emotional rest, spiritual rest, whatever that means to you, social rest, sensory rest, and creative rest. That's what I've learned to figure out the balance between. So it's less about my personal and professional life and more about those vectors and how I'm recovering in between the energy that I'm spending on those vectors. I hope that makes sense.
Absolutely, and I love talking about the space that we don't have. We don't think about commutes or just even for students, walks to campus as creating that breath between, you know, your kind of personal and social life and your work every day. Anybody else want to jump? I can call Marina. Do you want to go next?
Let me unmute myself. Boy, Keena, that's good. It's such a rich question. I am very lucky, I have to say, to be in my rent-stabilized apartment for 30 years, which is a 2-bedroom, and as a result, 100% more bedroom than I need. I lived here with my sister when we moved in a billion years ago. She's also a Barnard alumna, but now I'm here. So I have a commute from the bedroom to the spare, but it wasn't enough. So I realized early that I needed to recreate a structure, including my commute to work. I used to either walk or bike to work. So I planned my mornings so that it would look like I was going to the office. I had never worked remotely before March the 22nd, when Cuomo said you have to. So I recreated my commute. I had my routine in the morning: get up, have my cup of tea, stretch, and then I would walk the neighborhood for the half an hour that would have been my commute, 8:15 to 8:45, let's say, and then hop back into my desk chair so that I could be here. I also my sister lives in the same development where I do, and her kids, my niece and nephew, were home because of school too. So I plan to have a morning walk with them that would get all of our collective butts out of the apartment in the morning and greet the day. And it's I'm sloppier with when the day ends, but when my day ends, whenever it ends, it is end finish. I'm not going back to check anything, a tweet, a text, and eat, because there has to be that space. Otherwise, well, ellipsis. Otherwise, so that's what I've done.
Jen, I wonder if you could pick it up there, because as the founder of a company, the lines between your personal and your professional and like ending your day, it's all on you. So I'm wondering if that has been especially complicated given the remote situation.
It's been, I mean, I worked at a big agency. I worked at Ogilvy for 8 years, and I left about, I don't know, 9 months before COVID hit, or probably a little less. So we hit our 1-year anniversary last month. In the middle of COVID, I couldn't even have a party because it's like you can't go anywhere. But what's been intense for us is, yes, starting a business is one. The other part is the fact that, you know, we're doing well, right? So we are a crisis media relations marketing comm shop. Everyone needs this right now. So our clients are 24/7. So to the point of when you have to shut it off, it's hard because they're not shutting it off, because they're trying to figure out how to stay in business, how to manage what's going on. I have a lot of clients who are in the healthcare space who are developing COVID tests. So it is intense. So, you know, when I left and I was going to start this company, I never thought in my mind that we would have something like this happen. Nobody did. But I see it as an opportunity as well as a challenge, because I see so many of my peers who have no jobs, who have been furloughed, who would love to be busy. So I have to balance that with, yes, we all need our time. We all need to have work-life balance where it's hard to shut it off. But you also have to balance that with the fact that some people's phones are not ringing. So it's been hard. And so building my team in COVID, onboarding new staff in COVID, like it has been unbelievable. Like I took office space March 1st.
Oh no.
Great timing. So it's like, because I didn't believe it was, I guess I'm one of these people, I didn't think it was going to be bad. I went on vacation the week this was declared a pandemic. I'm like, oh, it's never going to happen. And whatever, I was wrong. So I would say that it's just been a massive learning experience, AJ, and the fact that we're figuring it out as we go. I'm trying to build a culture of a new community, of a new company in COVID when none of us have been together. I have clients I've never even met that have hired us in the midst of this. So it has been, we're learning as we go, we're figuring it out. And I've learned to start to shut off at certain points. The hard part is managing my clients who don't shut off because their CEOs don't let them shut off. So we get the trickle down effect.
So Margaret, for you, it's I want to pick up on something that Jen said, because you I imagine, and I'd love to hear, I might be wrong here, but working with arts organizations, working with freelancers, I imagine, working with documentarians, these are people who are typically used to being really busy and self-directed, and the arts have taken a tremendous hit during the last few months. So I'm wondering, you know, in addition to thinking about how your own personal professional life has changed, what is it like to work with some of those folks in the past 5 months?
I just wanted to say hey to everyone too. It's nice to be with Barnard Women and to be with this panel of stars. I'd say, you know, I've been very bad with work-life balance anyway in my career, and this has just been kind of really extraordinary because, you know, we live in the Bronx. I am working in my living room. I am blessed to be working, as Jennifer said, really blessed. But, you know, going through the early months to be in the Bronx, to see what was happening and to work for a social justice organization whose whose grantees are either working on civil rights and social justice and immigrant rights, as well as the arts and journalism, as I do. And especially in New York City art scene was probably most heavily hit, you know, with impact. And so we had very stressed, we just watched day by day, you know, what the effect was of lost revenue, canceled galas, you know, closures, lost earned income from. I mean, it was just like the world was unraveling. What I did, I usually do focus on my body with yoga and other things. What I did was I started to read biographies of people who didn't work in those fields at all, just to try to take myself away from women who worked either in advertising or I read Andre Leon Talley's book, who worked in fashion. I mean, honestly, things that really helped get me out of my own headspace. I also started playing the flute again, which was something that I grew up studying. That was a great way to just totally pull myself out of like worrying about work like 24/7. So those were my tools.
I really appreciate all of your comments. You're speaking in different ways about just creating space for yourself, whether it's artificially building in the time for your commute into another activity, or if it's an artistic exploration or, you know, something you haven't done in a while, taking an inventory. I think these are important things. And I think it's actually important for students to do this too, because they don't think of that themselves as at work very often. You guys can push back students on the call if you do, but I think that some of these things about commutes and creating space that would otherwise be dedicated to separating your work and your life, I think it's really helpful. Margaret, you alluded to some of this, and, you know, I'd like to open it back up. The arts have been impacted in a tremendous way. But I think that all of you represent industries that have differently felt the impacts. So we'll talk about kind of different impacts of COVID on communities of color, on individuals from low-income backgrounds. I definitely want to get there as well. But thinking about the work that you do, you know, how would you assess how these last 5 months have fundamentally changed the work that you're going to do going forward, presuming there's some new normal after we're done with this? What does financial services look like? What does resident advocacy look like? What does communications and the arts look like? How are we going to be fundamentally different when this all ends, whatever that means? Please, Keenan.
Oh, sure. So from a technology perspective, so we deliver the technology that powers the businesses of our firm. So we actually build the systems that the markets trade on, and we feed the machines basically. But they're teams of humans, right, that need to interact. And we had recently looked at a more, I don't know the best way to describe it. There's terminology out there called the Agile Methodology. So some of our approaches were built on co-location, face-to-face interaction, daily meetings with someone that sits right next to you. And we had just started shifting in that direction, and then boom, we've got to shift again. So I think what's happened though is that we've realized that we can be just as productive, if not more so. There are some trade-offs, right? So the rest and actually encouraging people to take breaks, take walks, log off. You don't have to be on all night long just because your colleague in another time zone is on. Like, you can hand over. But what's changed for us is our interactions with each other. And we're finding, you know, we do have a little bit of Zoom fatigue, sure, but we're finding ways around what we just thought we solved for, right? So it's just another thing to learn from. I think that previous speculation that people won't be productive if they're working from home, I think we've debunked that. And we've proven that this is workable, albeit not really the best for a permanent setup, but we can do it, right? So I think we've proven to ourselves and to other firms like ourselves that we can still deliver.
I'm still getting used to taking myself off mute. It's unbelievable. I still don't do it. Anybody? Margaret, you're off mute.
Yeah, I can add in just sort of what we're seeing in the arts field, or what we can expect in the arts field. You know, there's obviously the pandemic has been totally disruptive to the business model, and you know that and different aspects of the arts are coming back in different ways. Obviously, visual arts museums have already started to come back and reopen. They can do, you know, suspended entrances, and they can, you know, really do social distancing in accepting patrons. And so the museum sector is probably not hit as hard as, of course, the performing arts, theater, dance, music, which, you know, are still in this very uncertain place, depending on what state they're in, and city they're in, and where, you know, the virus is. And you're going to see a real change in kind of business model of a lot more content happening digitally and online, while we figure out how to present in a way that people are safe. So that is kind of a work in progress. We will also see, because of, you know, the solidarity movement, you know, the arts were really behind business and government in really diversifying leadership and boards. And so the solidarity movement has really pushed to the forefront, you know, leadership taking a much more active role in diversifying leaders of arts institutions and boards. And employees are playing a role in really collectively uprising, which we also have seen across arts institutions. So there's been a real, you know, several different impacts that the arts sector, for one, is going through, that we will continue to see playing out going forward. I'll sort of leave it there for now.
Marina, I'm wondering if you can talk about housing. It's such an important issue right now, with so much federal aid expiring, with eviction suspensions expiring in some places around the country. What are you seeing in your space specifically, and nonprofits more generally?
AJ, this is a particularly difficult struggle. My organization does tenant organizing in buildings that are owned by slumlords to help them fight back. And that means, at minimum, helping individuals establish some kind of collective identity and then take collective action. We also do work with the boards and shareholders of low-income co-ops, affordable co-ops, which are owned by them and democratically run by them. In both of those cases, it's low or lower income residents / shareholders that we work with. And we have found only imperfect substitutes for the in-person meeting. And that's because all of the technology that makes some industries be able to almost not miss a beat is not so profoundly available or closely embraced by most of the people that I work with. That being said, we are finding that working with much smaller groups, if it's virtual, or I've had a couple of conference call meetings that were such, I don't know what mosh pit gangbang mashup, but if a telephone line is all we have, because we don't have video and people aren't going to use an app-based I'll go with the telephone meeting. It's brutal, but it helps recreate some of the democracy that we're looking for when my organization is working to try and help a group of tenants organize. / I have a great emphasis on and sort of a personal desire to create community also. And like, I'm a rent stabilized tenant. I'm active in my own tenant association. We're 11,000 units here, but it's one building at a time. And it is possible to grossly, imperfectly recreate some of it virtually. I will say though, maybe with the Pollyanna pigtails here, we can't wait to be meeting in person again. And some of my colleagues who we recruited because they were tenant leaders in their own building, they created strong tenant associations to do the same elsewhere, come right out of the communities that are the most decimated. They're communities of color that were lower income, and like they're gonna walk to the tenant association that they're helping. So they don't have an issue with it so much, but we're talking about what is safe and not for staff to do, then factoring in also what are tenants comfortable with, and could we get a giant room and have some kind of meeting? It is profoundly tricky, and the proxies that we've been using they're very one-dimensional in comparison to meeting in person. So like, I can't wait for whatever it is, even if I have to lather myself with Crisco and go out and have an in-person meeting.
I heard that Crisco is being advocated by President Trump as an anti-COVID remedy. Jen, so collective action complicated in many ways by virtual technologies. It's interesting that at the same time we've seen some of the largest collective actions in our country's history in the last several months. And Jen, I know that a lot of your work that you've talked with me about has to do with helping organizations communicate about their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion from the inside out. And that seems to be one of the things that's going to substantively change for the better in the long run after, work that's ongoing now and happening and going to continue in the future, work that I know that you're doing. So is that one of the areas that you think things will fundamentally, do you see firms wanting to commit to these important topics in a more real way? I mean, I'm wondering what you're seeing.
Well, I think we're gonna see, right? So I think, being a PR person, I mean, I'm always very doubtful because I've seen so many things be done for image and purpose of PR. Like we have to make sure there's the follow through, right? So everybody can come out and say, I'm for this, I'm for that, I'm going to make an action plan. Well, guess what? We have to look a year from now and see, did actually anything change? Are we going to set metrics and actually drive change? We have a very diverse mix of clients, right? So our clients can be in the tech space to in the healthcare space, to media, to retail. And we do a lot of work with nonprofits too. And one of our clients is AnitaB.org. They're all about driving diversity and inclusion in the tech space. And that's the one client I mentioned that I've never even met. They hired us in March. And we're helping them with their signature event, Grace Hopper, which is like literally 25,000 people come together. We're big companies and next gen talent to merge and figure out how they can hire each other. But I've worked with their CEO, Brenda Darden-Wilkerson. She's amazing. And she says all the time, you can't wait to crisis. Like, this is the time we have to stand up or shut up. And like, if we let another moment pass us by where we haven't done anything, because we've had moments like this before, not as big and not as everyone coming together, but we've had moments where brands have said, we're going to change. And then a year from now, nothing's changed and things were done for optics. Just like when it was, everybody went and hired women. Like 2 years ago, everybody has to hire a woman. We're going to put a woman in every role. Like even I got promoted at Ogilvy because they're like, oh, Jen's this, let's put her in the communications job. Like it literally, like that's happened so much. And, I've seen both sides of it. I've seen really authentic people, CEOs who call, because all of my clients are CEOs, they'll call me up and they'll say, what do we need to do? And really mean it. And I'll make the right connections. I'll put them with the right people to help them. I'll even give them other consultants who can help them put D&I programs together. And then I've seen things done just for PR sake. And that still exists. I mean, it is, the only difference now is because of the culture we're in and the social media that's going on right now, more people will call it out and they'll challenge it and they'll call bullshit, pardon me. But like, I think that, I've been massively encouraged of what I've seen of how people want to really fundamentally want to make it different. I mean, our company, part of the reason I started Sway was because I wanted to create an agency that I felt reflected the times, and diversity and inclusion at the center of everything that we do. You know that, AJ. And it's like, that's why some people have come to work at our agency, is because everything we do is about driving change and making things better. But I think that we have to see, time will tell if everything everybody says they're going to do, they're really going to do it. I mean, in the advertising industry where I work, I've seen so many hires made over the past couple of weeks. Awesome. I hope that I hope that they are allowed to succeed and have the power to make decisions.
I want to comment on some of the material changes. So I feel like I'm like the corporate voice here, and that's not who I am.
I was the corporate voice.
No, you both are. It's great.
Yeah. Okay. So, so from a Morgan Stanley perspective, so remember, I joined the firm in 1997. That's a long, long time ago. And the firm's core values were what were instilled in us. There were 4: do the right thing, put clients first, lead with exceptional value, and give back. And this year, James Gorman, our CEO, he added a 5th. Well, he bumped it up from, it's not the 5th, but he added another core value: commit to diversity. And there were a series of leadership changes. You can go to the Morgan Stanley website and see more details, and I'm gonna just read this, just forgive me, because I wanna just get it right. So committing to diversity and inclusion for us means valuing individual and cultural differences as a defining strength, championing an environment where all employees feel a sense of belonging, are heard, seen, and respected, expecting everyone to challenge behavior counter to our culture of inclusion, and attract, develop, and retain talent reflecting the full diversity of society. And these are the societies where the firm has offices, so not just headquarters. So everywhere that we do business, we should be reflecting the diversity of that area. And there are metrics around this. There's leadership that are committed to holding our leadership team, our senior management, our operating committees, our firm committees, holding them accountable to these commitments. And this is the first time ever, right? So we kind of in past have embedded diversity into our talent initiatives, but this is now a firm core value, and it's something that we are now living and breathing every day. And for me, I've never seen that before, and it's been 20 plus, I don't want to do the math, years. So that's pivotal. It's precedent setting, and we're watching this very closely.
I think that I really appreciate the kind of specificity. And I wonder if I could ask Margaret for you to weigh in, because something that you said that stuck with me is that corporate actors in some cases have been ahead of the arts in advancing these, advancing attention and commitment and resources. And sometimes it's easier as corporate actors, you have more resources to dedicate and to demonstrate your real commitment. But I'm wondering, what in your estimation is making you optimistic for changes in DEI kinds of work within the arts space? What do you think organizations can be doing over the course of the next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if, I guess optimistic, I'm not sure optimistic is the word, because, it's a cultural problem. Arts and cultural institutions are usually formed under as nonprofits. For the large mainstream groups, they were founded by business people, captains of industry, and to hold their collections. In many ways, the Rockefellers, and the Fords and others, and they very much are isolated because they are sourced and supported by wealthy people and their partners and friends, and they were never incentivized when corporations who are much more public facing and government actually moved to diversify. And they're just now catching up because they are really run by those same people. Obviously, they are now impelled forward by this solidarity movement because they have been so slow in even advancing diversity initiatives that that they have been working on for the last, at least in New York City, the last couple of years and across the country. I'm hopeful now because of the solidarity movement and because it was so diverse, and it does involve young people of color across the spectrum. I'm hoping that that will be part of the change that will make things really stick now. There are also employees of those institutions who are rising up to challenge, white supremacy and other practices at those institutions. So I guess I'm hopeful that this really may be a turning point. The challenge and the sad thing is it's at a time when the business model is totally changing because of the disruption of this pandemic. So it really is a really kind of a crossroads at a very, very challenging time. But also, these are people who are the most creative people. They run these organizations, they're curators, they're artists, and I'm hopeful that they will really seize the opportunity to change these institutions just because they have the inventiveness to do so. So
I appreciate that. I should say that, there's it always chagrined me that in economic downturns, the kinds of roles that get X'd first in corporate actors are often sustainability folks, corporate social responsibility folks, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if LinkedIn is any evidence, one thing that's definitely not the case this time is that. I have never seen more DEI postings on LinkedIn than in the past couple of months. And I think that that commitment of resource and desiring to bring expertise to bear on these problems means that organizations will hold themselves more accountable than in the past. I want to try to have you kind of reflect on moments, inflection points in your own career. I want to start with Marina on this one, because to be doing what you've been doing for so long, there must have been moments where you faced some uncertainty about, like, would the work get done? Doing grassroots activism is just labor every day. And so I'm just wondering if you could talk about a moment in your career where you faced real uncertainty, either about getting something done or, a cause that you were fighting for, or a new initiative you were trying to get involved in, and reflect on what you used to get through that moment of uncertainty. As students are facing so much uncertainty right now, as we all are. So to draw on your experience of facing those kinds of moments.
It is sure. I will say my work in affordable housing has almost always been in one of two nonprofit organizations where we were a small group, and it was a supportive environment where the goal was some big thing out there: create more affordable housing, or organize a group. It's a big thing. The question you ask about uncertainty, I can answer better in the context of some of my extracurriculars when I've been involved in electoral work, and very, very partisan electoral work to try and get more tenant-friendly legislators elected in Albany. Sometimes downstate too, local races in Nassau or Westchester. I have impersonated constituents in counties all across New York State. There was uncertainty when it was that pushing the boulder to try and defeat an incumbent in a primary or some such. And the I don't know, the remedy, but part of what made it work, and part of what I was able to bring to it, was a willingness to be nourished by other people working for the same cause. So acknowledging my maybe shallow resources, or the smallness of my belief, or the difficulty that I was facing, but let that be counterbalanced by everyone else being positive, and really like sucking down the certainty of those around me. And I will tell you, recently I was able to help friend slash colleague. We were both on a political action committee board, Tenants Political Action Committee. She's an organizer out in Sunset Park, and she has had a very, very underwhelming assembly person who is a Democrat, represent her district forever and ever, who sold tenants short time and time again. And she decided to run. And it's very hard to defeat an incumbent in a primary, and on election night, which was just June 23rd, who knew what side was up? Because they had the absentee ballots and who's counting and the paper tiki tang, but in fact, she prevailed. And it was freaking thrilling. So sometimes the belief in what's possible is more important than proof about what's been done. It's this larger thing that comes from community. And I feel very lucky to have connected with communities that are interested in doing work similar to mine, and I've mooched off of them. That's how I've handled uncertainty.
Anyone want to rate? Keenan, go ahead, please.
Sure. So, I mean, I was going to talk about career uncertainty, but I've got some extracurricular activities that are more exciting than than technology. I majored in theater and I minored in dance at Barnard, so I don't think I mentioned that at all. So there it is. So the first, I guess my original answer would have been around my advancement within the firm, because I've been with the firm a long time, and of course, you know, the path to advancement is a little bit different for folks that look like me sometimes, are in the past. And so I do remember an early point in my career where I thought that if I made sure that certain groups of folks knew what I was doing, it would help advance me. And there were very specific people that I thought would be my sponsors. And there was one person that would have absolutely been my sponsor, my advocate, and that person resigned. And so there went my dreams, if you will. At the time, I was very junior, so I didn't realize at the time that it's not about, you know, making yourself visible to one person or one set of people, or actually it's about a set of people, not a single individual. So what I learned from that is how to engage, and I sought out opportunities to make my work visible. And that was a learning experience for me. So I passed that on to students, because it's important for you to cast a wide net for your sponsors, your mentors. You could keep that a smaller circle, but people that are going to advocate for you when you're not in the room, someone that's going to pound their fist on the table and say, yes, Keena should be doing the next great thing because she's done these other things in the past. You want a collection of folks like that kind of in your corner. So that was a learning experience. As far as, I wanted to touch on Marina's point about community. So I had a project last year, almost to the year, it's almost a 1-year anniversary of production. It was off Broadway. We were at the Players Theater for a limited run, but we went from a festival to an off Broadway run, and up until the day before the premiere at our festival, we were still setting choreography. And if that is not uncertainty, I don't know what is. But the magic of theater, the magic of community, the magic of, it was an all-female cast also, by the way, and just us coming together and figuring it out and helping each other and just lifting each other up. That's what got us through. And it's just the power of collective vision to what is possible versus, like you said, who cares about the work that has been done? What's possible is really what should drive you. So that's my comment on that.
Jen, Margaret? Uncertain moments?
Well, I guess my uncertain, oh, I'm sorry, Jen.
No, go for it. I'll go. I literally was like, there's so many.
I saw her eyes go off.
My uncertain moment was really kind of a bit of a midlife crisis following 9/11. I just really questioned, and shortly thereafter, my father's passing, I just really started looking at like the rest of my life and thinking about it very differently because of like those events for me. And I realized I had I had a career where I was advancing, but I was advancing into everybody else's ideas for where I should go than myself. And it was like early 40s where I had the balls, shall we say, to go back to the arts, which was really my first love. It's funny, Keena, I majored in dance and history at Barnard, and I sort of took a gig that was really kind of a backward moving gig, which was going and working for the Department of Cultural Affairs as a general counsel, and I found the rest of my life, which was working to and supporting arts and cultural organizations. So I will say it really was at that moment of what am I passionate about, and where do I want to spend the rest of my life? And it took me, 20 years to get there, but it was actually kind of crisis and loss.
Do you want me to go?
I was gonna say that's great. Tough to follow. I know. Or thank you, Margaret, for sharing. Very personal. We appreciate the candor. It's great. Do you want to, Jen? I mean, I can ask you that, but we could also. I would actually love to hear one of you, given that your eyebrows raised so high when I asked about uncertainty. So I'd love to hear one. But if you're feeling shy about that, I mean, I think another thing that we definitely want to get through before we hand it off to students for questions is like, how do you enter? What situations students are facing. It's an uncertain time. They're entering an academic year where they're hoping to plan for the future. How do you plan in this moment? Having experienced uncertainty in the past, what do you do to get ready? I guess would be one way to put it. So it's your choice. You can answer either one.
Well, maybe I'll answer both and I'll go quick.
Okay, perfect.
But I would say the reason I raise my eyes is because I've had so many moments of uncertainty in my career. I've had extreme highs, I've had extreme lows, and then I've recovered, and then I've had victories, and I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. I mean, I would say the most uncertain time for me was when I decided to leave Ogilvy. I mean, I left Ogilvy because I wanted to create an organization where I wanted to work. I mean, I got to the echelon of where you get to. I was on the executive leadership team. I was the face of the organization, and I felt like the emperor had no clothes. Like, I got to the point where I needed to continue to do the great work that I do. I was driving a D&I agenda for an organization, and I got to the place where I was just like, is this right? Am I meant to be a cog in the wheel? Not a cog. I was not more than a cog, but it felt like a cog in the wheel. But like, I need to create my own destiny. And I've realized, despite COVID, like, I'm having more fun than I've ever had. And I've literally doing some of the best work I've ever done. And it's like, because I took that chance. I mean, to walk away from a big job at Ogilvy, people were like, you're doing what? And I was just like, well, I have to try this. I mean, at a certain point, like, eventually I'm going to get older where I'm not going to want to make a move like this, and I have to try. And so I tried because like, it was time, because I was either going to spend the rest of my time at Ogilvy, or I was, and was very comfortable, or I was going to go start my own company, which we all know is hard, and hard in COVID times 20. And so it's just, but right now, and I don't believe in psychics or any of that stuff, but I'm meant to do this. It was scary, but I made the move, and it was the right thing to do, because I don't know what else I would be doing right now. Like, I think I'm supposed to be doing this. So that was my moment of uncertainty, was literally being like, do I go in and quit this job? Like, what do I do? And because people don't do that, right? So, but Barnard women do, because we're fearless and we do shit, right? But I think that that's kind of my story. And a segue to your question, AJ, of, what do we encourage people up and coming right now? Like, I think you have to first of all, you have a captive audience now. So now's the time. You want to send that email, send that email. People are home because they're going to look at it. They can't go anywhere. So send the email, write the note, go send someone something. Like, I have more people reaching out to me asking for part-time jobs, full-time jobs, help me get this job. Like, that's what you need to do. You need to continue to network, and more importantly, ask for what you want. The worst thing someone says is not now. But I can tell you, plug for us, I'm hiring, I need help. So anyone wants to go to marketing communications, check out the Sway Effect. You can, AJ, I'll give you my email, whatever. But like, I believe right now it's scary. It's scary, not just for entry level, it's scary for people of our level that have been furloughed or have lost jobs. Like, that's the reality we're in right now. But you know what? For hungry, good talent, there's always going to be a job. Ask for what you want, show hunger, show that you're ready to roll up your sleeves, because you know what? People that go the extra mile for me, like especially for entry level, I don't hire on skill. I hire by my gut. Like, can this person do it? Can I teach them? And like, that's why I hired Natalie from Barnard with no experience. And she's become such an integral part of my business because she's a sponge and she just takes information in. And I knew that when I met her. So that's my advice. And now I'll shut up.
No, that's great. And I put into the chat, just so that for those of you who don't know yet, Barnard Connect is a great resource. It's like LinkedIn with training wheels. It's only for Barnard students and alumni. It's a great place to find a mentor. I know some of you all are already on that platform, but also as proof, aside from Marina, who was connected to me through Christine, you know, so obviously longtime friend of Barnard there. I think my first interactions with Jen, Keena, and Margaret were all because I found your LinkedIn profiles first. And probably even reached out via LinkedIn. I always try to prove to students that this kind of thing works. So it's always proof positive, but great advice there. And I want to open it back up to everybody. Planning for uncertainty. What do you do now? I'm feeling amped up by the call to action there. So let's keep it rolling.
I would just advise be flexible, because here we are, we're all learning this new way of doing everything. So just be flexible. I think you, the students and people entering the workforce for the first time, they are going to teach us more about being flexible than the other way around. So I think just continue that and just be open. I think that's what I'm most impressed by, even when I mentor through our summer analyst program, our grad trainee program. And what I've seen this year, this is the first time we've done it virtually, but the resilience, the professionalism, the commitment, I mean, all that stuff, even during these strange and precedent-setting times, it just speaks volumes for what is possible with the new approaches and the fresh perspectives that this group of folks will bring and do bring to organizations that are, you know, hundreds of years old, or even organizations that are new. We're all learning together, and I think that the flexibility and the creativity that is brought by this round of talent that's now available to us is really going to transform things, and that kind of pumps me up as well.
Yeah, I go ahead, Marina.
No, go ahead, Margaret.
Okay. I would say, you know, figure out what you think you want to do and then pretend that's what you want to do. You know, because folks do want to help and be helpful, but you know, it's important for you to just narrow down where you want to be or what you want to be doing rather than being open-ended. That's one thing. The other thing is, if you do know where you want to be, whether it's working in some, you know, nonprofit, social services, or whatever, think about if the jobs aren't available, because this is a very odd time. Think about volunteering, and think about being a consultant, because again, because it is such a strange time, you know. Still, there is a need for folks, but maybe not a need for a full-time employee. Think about consulting and think about volunteering. It's a way for you to show your stuff and your commitment, and can very often be a way for you to either find your way into an organization or be recommended for other work and to get real experience.
Let me jump in on this. Thank you, Keena. So spot on. And Jen, your story about hiring. My organization has 25 people in it, and we're not, we didn't have a background of working remotely. And it is truthful that early on, and potentially now, to be charitable, we really don't know our ass from our elbows in terms of how to do this. We have a position we're hiring for since, I don't know, June-ish. I think we have a pile of resumes, but I also believe that we don't know how to actually hire for it. The reason I put this out anecdotally, we're looking for a construction manager, is because all of you who are in this meeting who are looking ahead to work are going to bring enormous skills that you don't know you have, partly because of your age demographic and partly because you're coming out of Barnard. Because
Absolutely.
one of the greatest skills, not always defined as such, is the belief that I can do it, the belief that you can do it. And I urge you, wherever you wind up or where you're looking to go, if you find a way in, to offer yourself first and foremost as, I can figure it out, I can get it done. It's a little bit sometimes humming a few bars, faking it. But the fact that you have skills because of the technological environment that you got your education in. And I can say that I wrote papers on a manual typewriter, and we're not really talking about so long ago. So I urge you to showcase your belief that you can get it done. And that will actually make you maybe more valuable to the place you wind up than the skills that you bring. Certainly it will be of equal value to the place you wind up than as the skills you bring.
Marina, I think that your comment really applies to so much of the advice that you all have been giving. And, very frequently I sit in the advising room and students say things like, well, that just happens to people, or I got lucky, or it just happened. And I find that I don't know if this is really a gender thing. It may very well be. I have not done the research, but I feel like redefining what you have done as a result of your skills, as a result of your input, as a result of practice, and not just who you are or, the thing that happened to fall in your lap. You have to recognize that your capacity to say, I can do this, is a skill. Your ability to own that for yourself, your ability to be in the moment and actually see it as an opportunity. I want to do a lightning round real quick, and that's the warning to students that if you want to send questions our way, type them on in the chat. I do this every panel. I am not quite sick of doing it, but I have done it like 60 times this summer. So the lightning round colloquium question has been all summer. One piece of advice that you wish you had, that you know how to give now, but that you had no idea about when you were still a student at Barnard. What is that one piece of advice that you wish you had that you can offer now? And I just remind the students, I'll let you guys think about it. This is like the end of Wait, Don't Tell Me. While you're talking, while you're thinking, students, remember, you can chat me questions privately. You can chat them to everyone in the group, or we can do this for another 10 minutes ourselves. But anybody have a lightning round piece of advice to close us on out for the formal part? Jen, I see you're off mute.
Oh, I was just off mute. Okay. I would say my advice is ask for what you want. You might be surprised the answer is yes.
I would say be proud of a non-traditional path if you've taken one. I certainly have, and no one told me that I would end up in technology with a theater major, dance minor. So be proud of it. Don't sit in a corner and say, hey, I'm a theater major, dance minor. I can't speak up in a technology forum, because that's not true.
Now I've got 3 or 4 things to say, but I wish that I had been told there is a difference between social work and social change work. I looked a lot in the former, but actually have found my heart beating in the latter.
I like that, Marina. That's right. I would say you learn from, you're going to learn to learn from everyone, whether or not you respect them or like them. But you have something to learn from most people, and just remember that, because sometimes we turn our minds off to folks we don't like, but there's lessons everywhere.
Keenan, a question for you from Eliza. Also a theater major. Would love to know how you've been able to transfer skills from theater into your current field and any fields that you've been to in between Barnard and now. And I think this can actually go for everybody too. You know, I think we're all using skills in surprising places once we leave college. One of the ideas at Beyond Barnard is your major doesn't dictate your entire career path. But Keenan, you know,
Sure.
as the dance and theater.
Yeah. So, I mean, I worked through school. So remember, I got the job while I was still in school. So that just to level set. But of course, presentation skills, of course, productions are just like projects. So you have deliverables, timelines, you're working with many different types of personalities. The production aspect is really what I think I bring to my role today, because I can view things in terms of a production schedule. So that's one really tangible way. But I was able to juggle both. So I was doing my theater and dance while learning coding and learning infrastructure and deploying infrastructure. It's not something I recommend for folks. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep during my education and my early parts of my career, but hopefully that answers your question.
Incredible. Incredible.
Other questions? We can have you all talk about transferable skills, skills you didn't know you had that you ended up using. I always like that question too. We just did a program last night on the transferable skills of the humanities and thinking about how humanistic work actually trains you to do things like present clearly, make strong arguments, think both analytically and synthetically. I think that one of the things that is important to do as a student at Barnard in the liberal arts is to argue vociferously for the value of the things that you're developing in the classroom in whatever, and to try out to try out different ways to mobilize what you're doing in the classroom in the things that you're doing outside of it.
I was a psych major at Barnard, and I now use it in because most of my job is dealing with the press. So I figure out what brands want to say. I talk to the press about what they want to hear, and then we figure out in the middle. It's literally like a psychology game all day long of managing all of it. And when I was a psych major at Barnard, I never even knew what I do for a living exists. But you don't until you get into it. And I'm literally like, my whole job is psychology all day. Talking to media, talking to my clients, talking to my team. It's literally I don't know how I would have survived without it.
I think that's great. Well, we're losing some folks to the evening, which is totally understandable. It's late summer. We got a few days left before classes. We don't want to keep anybody from what is actually looks like a nice day. I haven't been outside in 24 hours. I'm about to go on my run, my self-care. But I do want to say, my gosh, what a lovely way to spend the afternoon. Thanks to all of you. This is really, really just so much fun. And just a tremendous way to end off what has been a great summer of programs that help keep our community together. Thanks to Christine for all of her work. She just went back on camera, did so much of the labor to get summer colloquium together throughout the past couple of weeks. And to folks that are watching at home and students who are still on the panel, just remember, we're with you this semester. It's gonna be weird, but if nothing else, our panelists tonight have talked about flexibility, resilience, ways to be responsive to uncertainty, and just know that we're all allies in that, and you can always get in touch with Alumnae. So we're all here for you. It's a great, great big community.
Thank you all. This was a great conversation.
Have a great evening. Enjoy.
Wonderful to meet you all and see you and follow you. Thank you.